Welcome back, viewers. Today we will be testing the scalping line indicator.
But before we do, if you have not watched my first video and the videos after that, you need to go do that right now. Here at the Academy of Forex, we are building the best trading system possible as a team, and as a team, we will all profit from it when we are done. You can find a link to the first video down in the description below. You can also find a link to our Discord server, so that way we can all discuss testing indicators and building our trading system. And lastly, you can find a link below to TradingView. If you sign up for a paid account, you will save a little bit of money using the link below.
Alright, as I said, today we will be testing the scalping line indicator. But before we do, I wanted to put the indicator scoreboard up for everyone to see. So, to date, we have tested 90 indicators, and out of those 90 indicators, we have found 30 that have been winners, which means that they have met or exceeded the 60% win-loss ratio threshold that we have set for them. The best ones so far were able to achieve a 100% win rate. Now you need to go back and watch those videos to understand the context of how they were able to achieve that. But as we are working on building the best trading system possible, you could take any one of those 30 indicators and get out there and start potentially profitably trading the markets with them now. So go back and watch those videos, make a list of those indicators, and get out there and see what you can do with them. But stick with us here as we work on maximizing your trading profits. All right. So today's indicator is the scalping line indicator. Pretty simple setup. You can see it here on the bottom of the screen. It is a zero line cross indicator, and yeah, pretty simple. When it crosses up above the zero line, that is a signal to go long. When it crosses down below, that is a signal to go short. I might play around with, let's see, background colors here, because everybody knows sometimes, let's see, there we go. That gave us a little bit more of the colors we were looking for. Yeah, pretty simple. Like I said, you know, when it crosses up, we're going to go long. When it crosses down, we are going to go short. All right, let's get to testing here. Let's zoom in on this a little bit more. Seems to be really, really tiny. All right, so unfortunately, we had our first little bit of action here. Crosses up here. Back down there. All right. There we go. Yeah, and in the last video, we were playing around with price action, support and resistance, and stuff like that, right? And so I think it's important that I touch base on, you know, price action, support and resistance, and how it's used and how it can be used. And I feel that's important because you will find in your journey to find information about trading that one of the single most talked about strategies and you know, quote unquote indicators will be support and resistance. And it's not that support and resistance can't be a part of your trading. It's that I feel like too often traders rely on support and resistance only to determine how they are going to make their trades. And I feel like that is where it becomes an issue. Everybody starts trading differently. And therefore, you will run into scenarios where some people get it and can be profitable, and then other people don't quite get it and can't be profitable. Or you will run into inconsistent trading because within yourself, not every single zone you create will be the correct zone, right? And so I do feel like support and resistance, can be valuable, and as well as showing how support and resistance can be valuable. Another point that I like to press home, and I've said it in a few of my last videos, is that there's a reason why I prefer to back test things the quote unquote hard way, the manual way. And that's because the more time you spend in the market, the more time you start getting an eye for how price action moves and the um, um, the patterns that it forms, then you will start to get better and better at spotting areas of weakness and areas where things might be a switching trend, right? And so it's no different than anything else you do in life. The more you do it, the more you get good at it, right? And that is part of the reason why I spend a lot of my time doing the back testing the manual way, because I spend countless hours in the market. Yeah, it's on replay, but I'm still in the market and I'm still watching, learning how price action moves. And so I don't want people to think that support and resistance is complete crap, because it definitely isn't. But you have to be able to put support and resistance into its proper place. And I feel like support and resistance um, lends credibility to good indicators. If you have an indicator that is giving you a signal, and support and resistance is confirming that signal, then the more levels of confluence between different indicators and price action and support and resistance is the more likely that trade is going to be successful. Now, again, it's not going to work 100% of the time. Calling out support and resistance is not going to work 100% of the time. It is something that you have to develop that works more often than not. All right, so we're back on to testing this here. I have a feeling that this one isn't going to give us a whole lot of signals, but we'll plug along with it here. All right, boom, boom, boom. And so let's go back into playing with support and resistance. And the reason why I do this again is because it's good practice. It's really, really good practice to do this. As you are playing the replay function, practice spotting support and resistance. Practice catching these different moves and starting to understand how they form and what momentum is doing, and looking for telltale excuse me, looking for telltale signs. And here is a good example. So we can see again, we're getting kind of a cycle of movement here: a push upwards, a pullback, a push upwards, a pullback, a push upwards. We get this really big engulfing candle right here. This pushes right back up against this high, And so we are looking to see if this is going to double top here. And so we're looking to see if this move shows a sign of rejection of this area. And so this is where you can start layering different things into support and resistance. And so you don't want to look at this and say, well, here's this really big engulfing candle and it's, kind of extended at this point, and so it's definitely going to go down. No, you need some kind of confirmation. And ideally, your indicator would be the first confirmation that this is starting to make a second move, like your first real confirmation. But right now it's just kind of speculation. What's it going to do at this point? I speculate that it's pretty extended here. It might possibly start to reject this zone, and if it does start to reject this zone and break below this line here, making a lower low, then it's safe to assume at that point that it's probably going to start in a downtrend direction. So let's watch it and see what happens here. Nope, and you see here, so what it did was it broke up above this zone and continued, in the upwards direction. Now, a lot of people will say that resistance becomes support. And so it's likely that this may come down and start to bounce in this area, possibly creating a double top. And what we're looking for is we're looking for either a double top or a double bottom. Those are kind of the most, yep, you see what it did there? So it came down, it smacked that line right there. The like I said, the resistance became the support on this side, bounced off of it, and shot right back up through that ceiling again. And now we're going to step this up to here. And now we see that it came down, it broke that area, it's starting to come down and test this right here. And so that's pretty significant because it broke through what would be considered the support here and came down and is testing this little area right here. This is a sign of weakness, a sign that the shorts are starting to come in heavily, right? Now we're going to watch it here, see if it comes up and starts to bounce back up a little bit. It started to reject the zone. There you go. You see it started to push its way back up, but we got heavy sellers on it, and so they're shoving it back underneath this area. Now, if it can come down and break this area right here, then there is a good chance that it's going to push its way down. And what it's done here is it's formed a head and shoulders pattern right here. This is another one. I generally look for double tops, but head and shoulder pattern can also be valid. And so it came up, made a push here, made a heavy push up, creating the head, made the other shoulder here, and I would suspect that if it breaks down below this blue line, it is now going to continue down. And so what you could do is you could set an entry for this short right at this purple line, right? And then you could set your stop. Again, I would recommend that you use the ATR to trade this way, but you could set your stop up here, which our ATR is 90 pips, so I guess technically we could say, nope, see, that puts it way up there. And this is sometimes where you start running into the issue with support and resistance, is by the time it sets up a pattern, your stop, even a realistic stop, I mean, really your stop should be up here, right? Because that was the main point where it rejected. But you could set it right above the shoulder. But even at that, the stop is so far away from your entry that you're looking at a massive risk, a win-loss, a risk to win ratio here. And so let's see what it does. It's bouncing along, bouncing along, bouncing along. Boy, it's just hugging right into that area. I mean, there's a tug of war. You can see it happening here. Tug of war between the shorts and the longs. And, you know, they're both trying to push it in their direction, but it's just not quite working. And there we go. It finally broke down below that purple line. Again, your stop would be way up here. That would put you, your profit loss, way up there. Especially considering how most likely you are going to run into heavy, like in this zone, I guess we should say. Right in this area, you're going to run into some heavy resistance on this side. Support, I guess it would be, coming down. And so now you're looking at, let's see, about a 1-to-1 risk reward. And that is troublesome. But came down, boom, hit that area. And so you see here, we would have definitely been safe in that trade. But had it taken off in the other direction, that's the thing. You got to have, you know, when you start dealing with 1-to-1 risk reward, you really start to, you know, push the envelope. And you see here, like I said, it came down, it dropped into this zone. As soon as it hit that zone, it tried to make a push back up because this was kind of a floor of, you know, support here. And then it pushed down through it. Let's check out our indicator over here. Our indicator gave us a signal right in this area. Right about there. Does look like it was a good signal. Let's see here. Yep, was a good signal there. And we're going to continue on here. And now you see, often what you find is that support becomes resistance. And so, again, I use these terms. So when you are going up, right, it is called resistance. When you're going down, they call it support. Now, I'm sure there's people that use these terms kind of interchangeably, but that's how I always consider it. Resistance is going up, support is going down. And so think of it, if I'm standing on a floor, that's supporting me. If I jump up and hit my head on the ceiling, that's resisting me, right? And so what you find is that often when you break through either support or resistance, it now becomes the opposite. And so we see that it broke down, it hit, broke down below our support line, it came back up and hit resistance. It rejected it with that candle right there. You can see that long wicked candle where it broke up above, but then rejected it, came back down and hit this area. Now, again, before you would enter a trade, we need more confirmation than this. We need more than just it popped up and hit that. I mean, you could trade this if you wanted to, but boy, it gets risky when you're just dealing with 1 point, 1 touch support and resistance. But it's safe to assume at this point that since it popped up, it rejected this area in a nice downtrend. It is just a slight pullback. It's probably going to continue back down now into this area. If I had to guess, it's probably, we'll probably find some kind of area like in this type zone right here. And so I'm looking back at areas where it's bounced. You see it hit here, rejected, it hit here, it rejected, it came up, it broke, it came down and found support and rejected. then it's safe to say that when this makes it to this zone, that it is likely going to have some kind of interaction, some kind of reaction to what it did there. And you see it hit almost exactly on the line, rejected it, pushing it back up. We have a green candle here indicating that it definitely did not like this zone. It was a hot zone. Psst, burnt its finger, and now it's taken back off, trying to figure out what it's going to do now. There we go. It broke through it, and so it wasn't a very great area of support. It may come back up and retest this area right here, which again it often does. There we go. See, boom, came up, retested it, broke through it, and this is again where it's a zone, not a perfect line in the sand. And so the question is, what is it going to do? Now, we've had a heavy push down. We've had a few cycles here where it pushed down. It did a pullback, pushed down, did a pullback. You got this, super big engulfing candle right here. It technically broke up above the zone that it was finding support on here, breaking through the resistance zone. Came down, it touched it with this red candle here, but that's not necessarily confirmation yet, and so it most likely is going to bounce around this area a little bit, but if I had to guess, it's possibly going to try to form an uptrend, but we need confirmation again before we would take a trade and decide on what we're going to do. So let's play it a little bit here. There we go. We see it broke down below, came back up, started to form back up in this area, creating kind of a loose head and shoulder pattern once again, right? And so again, what we could do is, now that we're starting to get some confirmation in this, we could then take these lines over here. We've kind of already formed, and when you're doing this, you would leave these lines in place technically because they're forming kind of critical points, not your entries and exits, of course, but where support and resistance kind of finding each other. And so I can mark it off here in black. Mark this one as a black, and you could change these in whatever colors you would want. But now what I would say is you could set an entry right beyond that, and you could set a stop right below that shoulder. Again, we're looking at, and what we're going to do is we're going to expect that it's going to come up and it's going to hit this black line right here, because this is our next kind of zone where we can expect to find some resistance. And in doing that, that is technically where we would expect to reasonably take profit. So you're looking at about 90 pips take profit, and you're looking at about 90 pips, 100 pips maybe, to your stop. So again, we're at a 1-to-1 risk reward, which is great if you're really good at calling moves. Not so great if you start to kind of falter on your guesswork here. But there we go. Once again, we would have had a good trade. So it broke up, bam, smashed up into that area, hit that, and in theory you could take half of the trade off the table here, first take profit like we do, and anticipate if it's going to go up and hit the second zone, which is this black line up here. So let's see what happens. We had a heavy push up here. It's probably going to start trying to exhaust itself right here because it's done it many times before. We had a really big exhaustion point right in this area. So let's see what happens. It's pushing, pushing, almost. Boom. There we go. We would have gotten second take profit on that one. So that would have offset our win-loss ratio, or our profit-loss ratio there. So that would have been pretty decent. Not a bad trade right there. And at this point, it's really starting to arch out here. And so we can tell that it's really starting to get into an indecision mode with these long wicks on both sides. We got wicks up and we got wicks down. And so it's really starting to like, I don't know where it's going to go at this point. Now, let's be mindful of our indicator down here and what's going on with it. It's pointed out in my last video that as I was jabbering on about support and resistance that I missed one of the signals. And I did in fact, but it would have been a losing trade, and so wouldn't have helped us out much. But I'm trying to get you guys familiar with how constantly being in the market, how you can do this, how you can start to, just play this out and, just go back. What I will do literally is I'll go like this, and I'll go like this. And of course, these lines wouldn't be here. And I scroll back like this, keeping price action out of my screen. And then I hit my replay button and I just randomly pick a point anywhere on the screen and just click it, right? And so that way I'm not being biased. I'm not looking for a very specific time. I'm not looking for a specific year. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that'll watch this video and they'll go, oh, well, you've back tested 100 different indicators on these same pairs on these same year. And so you've memorized what price action is going to do. And I assure you, I wish my memory was that great on, what price action is going to do across, 28 different pairs on, the 2018 year. But yeah, I definitely don't have these memorized. I don't know what price action is going to do ahead of time. I am just, flying by the seat of my pants here and showing you guys how you can use, simple patterns, simple price action patterns in areas of support and resistance to, you can, trade off of it if you want. But I prefer to have an indicator that is also confirming these, these entries and exits and just lending another layer of credibility to my trade. And so, yeah, prices, sorry, video is getting a little long at this point, and so I am going to stop playing around with support and resistance at this point, and I am going to go ahead and plug along with our indicator here and get us closer to the end of the year before we end up with an hour-long video. So I'm going to let it play out here and catch up with you guys once we get closer to the end of the year now. We are almost to the end of the year now. Let's see if I doubt we're going to get another signal before we hit the end. All right, there we go. And so the last thing I am going to point out when it comes to support and resistance is you can see whenever I said leave these lines on your chart, right? And this is a good example as to why. So look, here we are. We were back here at basically the beginning of the year, plotting out those trades that we would have taken off of head and shoulder pattern, using support and resistance to get entry points and so on, right? And so here we are at the end of the year, and look at how price action interacted with those same points that we marked out way back there at the beginning of the year, right? You can see that it blatantly was using those points as support and resistance. I mean, it came up, it hit it right here. It bounced along for a second, unsure of what it was going to do. Came up, hit our next zone here. It rejected it for a moment, almost coming back for a full pullback into this area before pushing up ahead, creating a double top, actually kind of a triple top, you could consider it right here, before it then pushed its way down out of that area. And so this is a prime example of how support and resistance areas can be very beneficial, right? And so I don't want you to completely exclude support and resistance. I mean, you'll find some of the other channels out there that they're heavily indicator based channels, and they will flat tell you support and resistance is complete crap. It's a joke. It shouldn't be used at all, shouldn't even be considered. Not even gonna waste my time playing with support and resistance. Is all psychological, and none of it is verifiable in trading, right? And you can see here that obviously is just not the case. The problem is there's really no defined way of saying this exact area, that exact area. You start to pick up an eye for it, like I've said, over time, but it definitely is not something that is easily created by an indicator to automatically do it at this point. And so, all right, let's go back here. So, I expected this with scalping in the name, right? Scalping line, that indicates that it was probably meant to use on a lower time frame, not a daily time frame. And so it doesn't do horrible when it goes to throw a signal. It kind of does this choppiness. We could probably filter that out a little bit by creating a zone down here at the bottom. Instead of using the zero line, create a zone that it has to break out of to filter out that choppiness before it then goes into a trend. But once it catches a trend, it really catches that trend and runs for a while. And so, but I wish it was a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsive. I mean, we have areas where the trend was almost completely over by the time it actually picked up on it. And so, let's see here. Let's count them out, see what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We got 10 trades, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 winning trades. So that's not going to meet the criteria. Not a horrible indicator, but definitely not the greatest. Super laggy. Yeah. So it's going on with the no list for now, and we will move on to the next indicator from here.
If you have not already, like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell notification so that way you are notified anytime I post a new video. As part of the team, it's important that you are seeing the new videos as they come out so you know what it is that we are discussing and what indicators we are testing, have tested, and have not tested. Also, like usual, there is a link below in the description to the Discord server. You can join us on Discord so that way we can further discuss the indicators and have discussions as we move forward building our trading system. And lastly, like usual, there is a link below to TradingView. If you like what you see whenever I use TradingView and you are interested in signing up for TradingView, if you use the link below and sign up for a paid account, you will save a little bit of money. So, all right, everybody, I will see